What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris. I was out last week. I was out for reasons
Thank
I
God.
cannot disclose. I know some in this cast missed me. Others, it's just another Tuesday for them. However, I'm back. Jurg did a beautiful job steering the ship last week.
Thank you.
And you know what? I will say, I kind of missed Jurg. So, fellas, how are we this week? Let me start off with Dame. Let's get the unimportant ones out of the way first.
Yeah, again, nothing important going on in my life. Besides sports, that was big news today that we're going to talk about. Kind of affected my life personally, my sports life. But we'll get more into that. Other than that, I'm doing good.
Oh man, I missed you, Chris. I miss you. Shows are never the same when we're apart. When we're apart, it's the worst thing in the world. Nah. I consider it like that SpongeBob episode where we worked at the Chum Bucket, where it's like they're calling out to each other.
You're just trying to get that raise from Chris. That's why.
Oh man.
Oh, so nothing else, Jurg? You just
Nah. I mean, like it's. I mean, I live in Connecticut. What do you want me to say? Like, there ain't much to say, much to do. My personal life is even more boring than Dame's from what he lets on to us.
Dame is a liar, bro. That man, no, Dame be doing shit. He just doesn't want to disclose that information in public. Shit. Shut up, bro. All right. Whatever. All right, let's sports. All right, that's what we're here for. MLB dominated week this week. Guys, free agencies here. Signings have been made. Players have gone places. We're going to talk about them. We have a list of players that have signed to teams. We're going to go from pitching and then to hitting. That's right. Pitchers, hitters, the whole 9 yards. So, MLB free agency dominated episode. There's still a bunch of players that haven't signed yet, and we're going to hold off on that. And you know what? Likely they're going to sign as soon as we end this recording, but we are recording, it's Wednesday, December 7th, so a bunch of signings have been made. We're going to talk about them, a bunch of moves, and a lot of big ones, too. A lot of big ones. A lot of major signings, for lack of a better term. So, fellas, let's get into it. Are we ready?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I was about to say, if we're lucky, someone might sign during the show and we can react to that.
That is true. I was hoping that Judge would sign before, and, he kind of did. But let's not spoil it.
Signed before he did. Like, it's not a kind of maybe he did. He did.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about pitchers first that have signed. Taijuan Walker, 4 years, $72 million. Philadelphia Phillies. Who wants to take the reins on this one? Dame, let me start off with... No, Jurg, let me start off with you. Let me start off hot.
Okay. The deal kind of made sense. Just weeks ago, the Phillies, they ended up losing Zach Eflin to the Tampa Bay Rays, so there was a hole there in pitching. Even though Eflin has kind of been a bit of a reliever for them recently due to injuries, he's still a starting caliber pitcher. And the Phillies just made it to the World Series, so they're doing what most organizations would do off the end of last season. They had a great run. They got hot at the right time. And if there is one area that we've always discussed with this team, it's pitching. Now, granted, it's a little bit more in the relief pitching more so, but I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. You get a Taijuan Walker who's been great with the Mets the last couple of seasons. This is just a bang all-around signing for the Phillies. And I think at this point, like 4 years, 72, I think anywhere from 16 to 20 million is about the base level salary for your third starting pitcher at this point. That's where we're at in Major League Baseball now, where your third starting pitcher can make nearly $20 million a year, and you consider it a pretty good deal. I consider it a pretty good deal. Like, Walker has struggled early in his career, but really found his groove with the Mets. If they can get close to that version from him, I think this is an amazing signing by the Phillies, coming off a run where they hope to make it back to the playoffs and try to go on another magical run.
Yeah, I love the signing for the Phillies. Clearly, at the top, they have Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler headline their rotation, and those are two spectacular aces to have. They kind of just needed to, from 3 to 5, get guys who could kind of eat innings and keep them in games while that lineup goes to work and get things done. We'll still get to their biggest move. This wasn't even their biggest move, not even close. But I think Taijuan Walker perfectly fits that bill. He's going to slide right into that the 4 spot, actually, because they have a Ranger Suarez who emerged last year as a young starter, was a bullpen guy. They brought him to rotation. He was spectacular. So Taijuan Walker is really going to slide in right into that 4 spot. He's going to have no pressure on him compared to when he was on the Mets with DeGrom out. He was mostly number 2 behind Max Scherzer. When Max Scherzer was out, he was really their best pitcher. So there was a lot of pressure on him, especially in New York. But now he gets to go to Philadelphia, which It's equally as much pressure, I'd say, pitching in Philadelphia and New York, but sliding into that 4 spot with a 10 times better lineup than he had in New York, he's going to have a lot better run support. The bullpen in Philly isn't that good, but neither was it with the Mets. Kind of just had one guy, but like I said, he's not going to have pressure at all. He got a great deal for himself. He almost got $20 million a year to be a number 3 or 4 starter at worst. I love this for the Phillies. I mean, they went to the World Series, and they're still going for it. They're spending all this money to make their team even better. I love it for them.
Health too, by the way, Dame, like, because you mentioned it. And Nola and Wheeler have been pretty healthy in their Phillies tenure. If those guys stay healthy, then Taiwan is going to stay in the bottom portion of the starting rotation for his entire tenure, which probably plays to his strengths much better than being the number 1, like you said.
Well, speaking of the Schmets, Jose Quintana, 2 years, $26 million. Dame, let me stick with you. What do we make of this?
So I personally actually really like this deal for the Mets. We'll get into who else they signed. They lost DeGrom. I'll just say they got Justin Verlander, of course. We'll get more into that signing later. So they have an amazing 1-2 punch, clearly. But their rotation from 3 to 5 is awful. I mean, it's Tyler McGill, David Peterson, and Carlos Carrasco. It might be the worst 3 to 5 in the entire league. But they might have the best one too. So they clearly need to add to that rotation because on top of that, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer are 2 guys who have had their injuries in the past. They're not guys who go 200 innings for you in the season anymore. They're just not those guys. And with a bullpen as weak as it is, you need to bring in starters that are going to give you 6 innings here and there, keep you in ball games, give you 6 innings, allowing 3 runs or something like that. So I think Jose Quintana perfectly fits that. I think Jameson Taillon would have been a better option for them, but he obviously got scooped up. We'll also talk about that in a bit. But Jose Quintana was extremely solid last year for the Pirates, and then he got traded to the Cardinals. He was pretty good as well. He had a 2.93 ERA, which is spectacular. Not spectacular, but it's great in this day and age in baseball. Anything below 3, I think, is really good. But him being a lefty, I think, helps as well. You have Verlander and Scherzer, who are obviously righties. You have Miguel and Carrasco are righties as well. So bringing that lefty to put on that rotation to give teams in a series a different kind of look, I think is really good for them. They still have a lot of moves to make. This team is not nearly done spending money. I'm sure Cohen is spending a lot more money. Team has a lot more holes, but I think sliding Quintana into that 3 or 4 spot in that rotation to kind of eat up innings and save them from using that bullpen or save DeGrom and Max from maybe being able to skip a start here or there, I think is a really good signing for them.
Yeah. Basically echoing those points. A weak bottom third of the rotation for the Mets. They were, again, unfortunate luck last season with DeGrom yet again being injured. Mad Max, like now that he's getting older, while he's been consistent for so long, we always think of it, but there probably will be is going to be a portion of the season where he probably has to skip a start or 2, if not 3, due to just resting him. Especially come the playoffs if the Mets are well within position, which, I mean, even if they are, they might blow the division lead yet again to the Braves, which they seem to love doing like every year or every other year. But yeah,
unnecessary, Jurg, unnecessary.
Super necessary. But Quintana, I think, is a pretty good 2-year patch stopgap. You need to improve the bottom of your rotation. I think we're seeing the value of that in today's age, where you think of like all the power and the home run potential there is in lineups, especially in that division in and of itself. With the Phillies, they, like Dame has kind of alluded to it before, but they got better offensively in this offseason. They added yet another hitter. You have the Atlanta Braves, who can be potentially a murderer's row, like in spurts in terms of their hitting. With if he's fully healthy this year, my dark horse MVP candidate for next season, Ronald Acuna, within division, there's already some hitters, so you just improve the bottom portion of your rotation. Very much a job well done for the Mets right there, which they really did need after how the offseason started for them. They've rebounded very strong since.
Okay. I'm going to ignore that backhanded insult by Jurg. Not really an insult, but, got to create a little tension here. Can't have all baby faces in this episode. All right, fellas, next. Jurg, sticking with you. Kenley Jensen, 2 years, $32 million, Boston Red Sox. Talk to me.
It's weird because Boston has underperformed they underperformed last season compared to what they were in 2021. And you got to believe for that organization internally, they believe that they should get back to that level. It's funny, 2021, the 2 most surprising teams were the Red Sox and the Giants. And then in 2022, the 2 teams that faltered compared to 2021, but we actually more expected what 2022 was from them, which was the Red Sox and the Giants. I know that kind of sounded jarbled up, but basically, we didn't expect the Red Sox to have the 2021 season they had. Last year was more to what we've thought of them, and this is them trying to buy into the hype of what they were now 2 seasons ago. And bullpen, I feel like we've said this so many times, even when the Red Sox were good, is that they need to strengthen the bullpen and you need a closer. Well, you got a guy who just had an amazing bounce back season for himself with the Atlanta Braves. Kenley Jensen is one of the best and most trusted closers in baseball over the last decade or so. It looked like maybe to the end of his Dodgers tenure was kind of slipping, but he bounced back in a big way last year. 2 years, 32 mil. It's a short-term option for them. Like it's not bad when it comes to pitchers, and I think we're probably going to see this try to become a new trend going forward, especially for some of these guys. Which Kenley Jensen, like the fact that he is in free agency this late in his career is kind of rare. Like a lot of guys like this at his age, they tend to not make it to free agency at this, like pitching at the level he did. So a higher AAV was probably always going to be his goal, and he got it with the 2-year term. I think it was great for him personally. For the Red Sox, they're trying to prove themselves. They're trying to see if they can take who knows? Maybe it's a wide open division next year in the AL East. We know the Yankees are the usual favorites, but the Rays are always good. The Blue Jays have made the playoffs now recently. We'll see how they can bounce back from what was a disappointing exit. And especially now that we have 3 wildcard teams that make it now, I think the Red Sox are looking at this slightly expanded playoffs. The AL East, there's some potential there. They're trying to go at a little retool of sorts here. And I commend them for it. But the thing is that you need the offense to match the pitching. And considering one of their players is a free agent, Xander Bogaerts, and he's potentially leaving the team, where's the consistency here? So that's all I'm asking. Kind of weird for Boston to do, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to criticize a team for going after a very good closer. Like you can't really do that. You need the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean the Red Sox for a while now have had a weakness their weakness being their bullpen. Ever since Craig Kimbrell was one of the best closers in the league, ever since he left and went downhill turn, that's been their problem. I can't name you more than 2 guys in their bullpen outside Garrett Whitlock and that guy that pitches with his neck to the side. I don't even know his name. I just know how he looks. But regardless, they clearly have a big hole in the bullpen. And Kenley Jansen, although it's for a lot of money, I mean, $60 million a year for a closer, I think that's the second most behind Edwin Diaz, who just signed, I think, a $20 million deal per year with the Mets. So it's a lot of money for a guy who obviously isn't as good as he used to be. But he had a pretty good year with the Braves last year. That's why I thought the Braves would bring him back, because he was solid for them and he was on a winning culture, winning team. He did really good for them throughout the year. He's a big part of their success. And they wouldn't be in the position they were with the super comeback they had towards the end of the year. They wouldn't be there without him closing games. So I was surprised they didn't bring him back, but I guess for the price tag, it was kind of hard to. But Red Sox, I mean, they're not paying a lot of guys, so they might as well use this kind of money on a closer, something that, like I said, they've been lacking for years. But like Jurg mentioned, I'm kind of confused in their direction. They have so many holes, on offense specifically. You aren't re-signing Xander Bogaerts, at least from what we're hearing. They're not pursuing him as heavy, even though I think I saw reports today that they kind of upped their pursuit of him. But still, you just don't know if they're going to re-sign him. They aren't giving Rafael Devers the extension he deserves. And his price absolutely did go up with this offseason. Guys like Trey Turner signing, Aaron Judge signing $300+ million deals. Rafael Devers' price absolutely went up. So it's still to be determined what they do with that. But yeah, I don't know the direction of the Red Sox. I get why they did it because, like I said, it's been such a massive hole for them for a while. But good for them, I guess, for filling it and actually using money, unlike these other teams that just don't. But I think it's great for Kenley Jansen just to get his money and prove he could do it somewhere else in a tough division.
Dame, I'm gonna stick with you. Jameson Taillon, 4 years, $68 million, Chicago Cubs.
Yes. So this guy obviously is a former Yankee. We talked about him when we did our predictions. I would have loved the Yankees to bring him back. I think he was extremely solid. I think he's a solid guy. A 3 in a rotation. He could sometimes pitch like a 2 or even a 1, rarely. But he's just not a guy who's going to lose you games. He's a guy who's going to eat up innings, keep you in ball games, go 6 innings, 2 runs, something like that. Quality start after quality start. He has his injury history, but as of late this past year, I don't think he didn't have much of injury problems this past season with the Yankees from what I remember. So he was extremely solid. He definitely earned his contract. I think he should have went for more money. I don't know how he got less than Tom Walker. That doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, it's a great addition for the Cubs. I don't know what they're exactly going through, kind of a rebuild, but not really a rebuild, where they're still looking to improve, but they're not fully tanking, which I like. Of course, they added Marcus Stroman last year. They're still on all the big shortstops that are still free agents this year. Still to be determined what they do with that. But I say Jameson Taillon, you could put the top of our rotation next to Marcus Stroman, and the young guys they have coming up, I think, is great for them. I would have loved the Yankees to retain him, like I said, or offer him a qualifying offer, but they didn't. I think a team like the Mets could have definitely used him. If you slot him right behind Verlander and Max, I think it would have been great for them. But good for him. 4 years, $68 million. That's a good deal. I think he should have deserved more, but it is what it is. But I think he's a great spot with the Cubs, pitching there, and has a team and an organization that wants to improve and wants to win. That's just not going to take it away. So good for him and good for the Cubs.
Yeah, like to your point, Damon, we kind of mentioned it when we did preview some free agents a couple weeks back, is that despite the fact that we know in the short term here, the Cubs aren't necessarily going to be like a strong contending team, this team is trying to project long term. And one of the ways that you can project long term is to sign guys who can fill gaps right now in the team that you don't necessarily want to expose your young players to if they're not healthy. The Cubs, through their tear down of that 2016 championship team when they traded Baez, Rizzo, and Chris Bryant and other pieces as well, and just letting guys go, they're trying to rebuild from within. They're trying to make smart draft choices like they did before. And do the best possible thing. And they kind of do that actually with a hitter here that we're going to talk about later on. But this is what, to your point, this is a team trying to retool. They're trying to put pieces together that can help foster a reset for the organization that'll be valuable, that whether he sees the contract through or in 2 years, if it's still not working out for the team, but they still have hope for the future, it's like, hey, thank you for signing with us. Thank you for your service. We'll trade you to a better spot, and they'll just get more picks out of him in like 2 to 3 years' time. This is what you do. I think the Cubs are trying to go about it the right way, where they're trying to get some veterans here so they can let their prospects marinate and develop in the system. If you try to cut off the development curve for these guys, some guys, if you just hotshot them, it's not going to work out. Some players, they do come in and they, perform like fire off the top. Not every prospect is built the same. So I think this is just one of those signings for the team. It's extremely low risk, extremely high reward for what Taillon could do for this team. Whether if they do make a quick turnaround and in 2 or 3 years they're competitive again and he could be a part of that rotation, or in 2 or 3 years if they still need another, funny enough, year or two in that span of time, they could trade him and get more prospects back. This is an absolute win-win for what the Chicago Cubs are trying to do, which is they're trying to rebuild / retool, but they're not tanking. And that we'll see how it works out for them is the simplest way to put it. But I like it. This is a guy who, like Dame said it best, he's going to eat up innings. He's going to go consistently 6-7 at a time. This is just a great signing overall by the Cubs. And to Dame's point, I thought this was a little bit of an underpay, especially with what some of these guys got paid and what I think the average for a good number 3 is, a really good number 3 is now in baseball. I thought this was an underpay. So, I mean, maybe he just wanted to go play for Chicago, or there's just something else that we don't know about. Who knows? But I think this is a steal for the Cubs, for the organization.
All right. Main event time. Jurg, sticking with you. Edwin Diaz re-signs with the Mets. 5 years, $102 million. Talk to me.
Yeah, one of the signings that happened closer to the start of the offseason, but it is worth bringing up here. The Mets, it's one of those things where they kind of didn't have a choice. Like with the season he had, we'll see if he can, keep it up. I know of another New York team that gave a 5-year deal to a closer here very recently that is very much regarded at the end of the deal. So we'll see if, that mirrors it on just the other side of New York. But at the same time, I think Diaz, the season he had, if you had let him walk, the fan base would have just absolutely given so much scorn. And I think if there's one thing we could say about Steve Cohen, he cares about Twitter and fans a lot more than I think most owners do. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me. And this is just the thing with sports in general. It's like, it can sometimes be difficult trying to project out and if a guy is going to continue to be at this pace. Like, is Edwin Diaz going to look like the greatest closer of all time for all the next 5 seasons? Probably not. But if he could still be an all-star closer of the year caliber player, that's kind of all you ask for with this deal. There is an out, at least there's an out, I think, after year 3 of the deal, if I'm not mistaken, or year 4. And I think there's also an option for a 6th year at the very end of the deal. But that's for many years down the line for the Mets. I think for the short term, they needed to do this. Like, this is one of those deals that the organization put itself into, because he didn't perform the best when he first got to the Mets. I remember there was a lot of criticism of him, but he rounded into form and became the great closer he did last season. And I just think it's, when a guy is hot, you have to take a chance. Do I like 5 years of taking that chance? Well, we'll see how it works out for the Mets here. If he can perform better. I mean, hey, Francisco Lindor played better in year 2 of his deal than year 1. Now, that's not saying much because year 1 was terrible in his contract extension, but maybe, maybe with Diaz, he'll be able to just keep up a pretty good pace the whole time.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Mets really had no choice here. He had an absolutely historic season, one of the greatest seasons ever for a closer. Clearly the best closer in baseball. I don't even think it's close. 5 for 102 is close to what I predicted. I said 5 for 100. It is what it is. He deserved every dollar of it. I mean, the guy averaged 50% of his outs or strikeouts, I think, or something like that. It was ridiculous. But like you mentioned, he wasn't good his first 2 years on the Mets. Everyone was saying how awful the trade-offs for the Mets and how they got screwed over. And then, of course, contract year comes up and he has an absolutely ridiculous year. He earned every dollar. Still to be determined which Edwin Diaz you're going to get for the next 5 years. If it's going to be split up in 2 great years, 3 bad years all the way around, or if he's just going to be bad in general or just great in general. It's still to be seen. But I just think based off the year he had, there's no way you can say he doesn't deserve this contract. It's just to be determined how the contract is going to play out, because it is a lot of money for a closer. I mean, go look around the league. I can't give you specifics now, but there's a lot of players that play every single day, or starters that start every 5 days and give you multiple innings that get paid $20 million or less. So it's still to be seen. They could have used the money somewhere else, but to show a bullpen that they have now, it's actually god awful. Might be the worst in the league. So being able to use that money to shore up the last inning with Edwin Diaz, I think was definitely necessary.
Right.
All right. Dame, sticking with you. Clayton Kershaw re-signing with the Dodgers, 1 year, $20 million. Talk to me.
So personally, I don't think there's much to say about this. I mean, this was pretty expected. Clayton Kershaw wasn't going anywhere. He spent his whole career there. He's won a championship there. He's an absolute legend, Hall of Famer. He's going to retire in that jersey. His Hall of Fame speech is going to be in that jersey, all that kind of stuff. It was just about getting the money right. And 1 for 20 is what it is. Like I said, I just talked about Edwin Diaz getting $20 million for 5 years. Clayton Kershaw, although he's old and he has his health problems, 1 year, $20 million is like a pretty good deal for the Dodgers and for Clayton Kershaw. He's obviously had his problems in the postseason sometimes, but I think over the past couple of years he's kind of cleaned that up. So putting him there in that rotation after losing Tyler Anderson and Walker Buehler to injury, Tyler Anderson to the Angels, they need a veteran piece in that rotation for the young guys like Urias and other guys coming up. So Clayton Kershaw put right there for the Dodgers is great. It is what it is.
Yeah, same. Not much to say about it. Just the guy staying with his team. Like, it's been rumored for the last couple of years. Are the Dodgers going to just let Kershaw walk, and are we going to see him in a different uniform? I don't think he's going to allow that. I think he's constantly taking these 1 year deals to give the team the flexibility they need to qualify guys, to make feelers to guys who are free agents, and to kind of money plan. Because, I mean, yes, there is no salary cap in baseball, and yes, the Dodgers tend to pay luxury tax plenty, but I think the organization is trying to pay less luxury tax as possible, considering some of the moves and some of the guys they've let go or have let hit free agency. And I think part of the thing is Kershaw is being flexible with them and just going year by year with the club to give them that. And also pretty consistent. Like, last year was kind of one of his better seasons he's had in a little bit. You get a guy, really, like, it is 1 year, $20 million, but I think $5 million of it, if it was a signing bonus. So really, like, base salary of just $15 million for a guy, if he could still give you an ERA of just about 3, and I think it was just under 3 last year. That is amazing. And I think the thing will be how does he perform this year? Because like they mentioned, Walker Buehler is going to be out for the year now. You're going to have to rely on Urias, and I think Gonsolin, if he's still there. But I think they qualified him, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you're going to have to rely on these guys to potentially perform up there. Is Kershaw going to have to be at the number 2 spot again? Which, I mean, like, it'll be the first time in a while that they're going to have to put that much pressure on him, so that remains to be seen. But just in the grand scope of things, you keep your Hall of Fame, one of the icons of your franchise of the last decade plus, and a future Hall of Famer on the team for another year. Keep him wearing the Dodgers blue and white. Smart move.
Okay. All right, Jurg, sticking with you. Justin Verlander to the Mets. 2 years, $86 million. What do you think? Talk to me. How are we feeling about this move? Should I be enthused or should I be a little concerned because is it a little too late in his career to be hyped about this?
Well, you did just add the reigning Cy Young winner, and considering what he was last season after surgery, which a lot of people thought was going to end up, kind of bringing an end to Kershaw's career. This is a guy now that's a World Series champion here, 3-time Cy Young winner. Got his first career World Series victory in this World Series and towards the end of the series, which was big. But just a guy who performed on a level last season that nobody expected. And I think, and I'm kind of cheating. Well, not cheating, but like we kind of have to bring up the number one guy here, like at least a little bit to give the context of with Jacob deGrom leaving and what the Mets decided to do with this.
I was gonna say that, like, should this be interchangeable with you guys? But yeah. Go ahead, Jurg. Go ahead.
I think it should be because the Verlander thing doesn't happen without the decision that they made to let deGrom go, and I think the reason for that ultimately was, yes, deGrom, you developed him. You saw him grow up with the Mets, et cetera, but not even just the injuries. Like, let's be real here. Actually, the injuries play the biggest part of it. 5 years and the expensive deal that he got from those good old Texas Rangers who just love poaching talent and paying them up the wazoo, as they've done multiple times in franchise history. But 5 years for good old Jacob deGrom with that team, like it's long term and a lot of money, right? And 185. Could the Mets have matched that? Of course. Could they have even surpassed that? Of course. But I think the Mets didn't want to commit 5 years to a guy that hasn't played anywhere near a full season for 5 years. So I do get that mindset. And I think signing Verlander was the perfect replacement. It's 2 fully guaranteed years. The third year is a vesting option depending on his innings pitched total in 2024. So you're paying him a little bit more in the AAV, but it's on a shorter term deal. This is a guy who, even coming off injury, was healthy all of last season, performed great, was the Astros' main guy in the playoffs, and you can interchange him between being number one or number two because you already have a number one, multi-time Cy Young winner who's won a World Series with another team in Max Scherzer. Funny how that works, eh? So I know Mets fans are upset that they let deGrom go, and I kind of get the idea of when you let one of your own guys go, like the perception is, how could they do that to him? But I think it was also just clear deGrom wanted to get out of New York. I think he wanted to leave the Mets. I think there were plenty of avenues for them to explore and take had he really wanted to stay. And I just think at the end of the day, he didn't want to be there. He wanted to go to the highest bidder, and he wanted to go to a state income tax free state, which is what
I was about to say. I mean, W for him tax wise.
Oh yeah, people got to understand, $185 is different in Texas compared to
$185, Jurg?
$185 million. $185. I mean, $185 in Texas is still different from New York.
That is true
as well. But yeah, $185 million over 5 years. Like, for the Mets' perspective, they go shorter term. They get a guy who could probably perform at relatively close to the level and is a higher chance at staying healthy. Like, come on now. And just real quick for the Rangers' perspective, since I brought deGrom here and like Dame could just end off with the pitchers. It makes sense. It's I believe they have gotten into their new ballpark, if I'm not mistaken. So it's new ballpark. They made the investments last year with Corey Seager. They have some guys coming up in the system, and now you just add a number one guy. Like, the biggest thing is health. If this works out, like, I don't even want to curse the Mets if it does work out, because there's no guarantee that he'll be healthy the next 5 years. If he is, well, good for Texas, But without that guarantee, like, it's a good thing for the Mets, and the Rangers are getting what they hope to be the franchise centerpiece behind a starting pitching rotation that they hope can finally turn this team around. Because it's been a long time since the Rangers were a relevant organization. Like, what were we, freshmen in high school the last time they made the World Series? It's been a long time between drinks for that club, and for their sake, this deGrom deal better work out. Because if it doesn't, this is just another tragic deal in that franchise's history.
So yeah, I mean, 2 historic deals here with Verlander and deGrom. I'll talk about Verlander first. 2 years, $86 million. I don't want to shit on the Mets, but I personally don't like the deal for them. Paying 2 guys with him and Scherzer $40-30 million a year for the next 2 years, I think it's a little ridiculous. I think it's like $175 million combined for the next 2 years for 2 guys who have an injury history And I get it, they're elite
You have an injury history, bro. Shut up.
All right. Anyways, they're two of the top 5 arguably pitchers in the entire league, but they just can't stay healthy. They're old. Their injuries are just going to get worse. They're not going to be able to pitch as dominant from game 1 to the last game of the season. It's just not going to happen. That's why I personally don't like it, but I get it. You had to kind of, I guess, not save face, but you needed to fill a big hole with DeGrom leaving. And Justin Verlander was the best pitcher on the market. I probably would have done the same thing. It's risky. For me, it's risky. It's very risky, especially because you have another risk in Max Scherzer on the other end. So it's a lot of money for these two guys. Who knows if they're going to stay healthy? Who knows how it's going to work out? They still have so many more holes. I think they could use that money to fill them in other ways, but it is what it is. Steve Cohen just got unlimited money. He could do what he wants. So we'll see how that works out. But for Jacob deGrom, I like that the Mets let him go because that, I think, is more of a riskier deal than the Verlander thing. 5 for 185 for a guy who clearly can't stay healthy. Like, it's the last 2 years. I can't even tell you if he pitched a full season's worth of games the past 2 years. So it's been really bad. $37 million a year. I think he's actually, I was surprised at that number, AAV, but I guess he kind of let go of the higher AAV for more years. He has a 5-year deal, arguably with the 6-year option, I think. I don't know what the option is, but it's still there. So it's 5 years is a lot for a guy like this. But I mean, when he's healthy, he's the best pitcher in baseball, without a doubt. Like Jurg mentioned, he just opened a new ballpark. I was there last year. It's a beautiful ballpark that when I went there was probably 200 people total at the game. So I think Jacob deGrom would probably quadruple that, if not more.
Wait a minute. How many people were there?
Like 200 people.
That's it?
Nah, obviously more, but it felt like 200 people. Like I could have sat in any seat in the ballpark if I wanted to, and could have walked over there. It was bad, but that was before they signed Seager, before they signed Simeon, before they signed deGrom. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more people in the stands now. But yeah, they signed Seager and Simeon last year, so now they needed to kind of pivot to pitching this year because I can't name you one starter in their rotation. So headlining it with Jacob deGrom, I think is great, and a bigger thing to note with them getting deGrom, I think, is that they have Jack Leiter and Rocker as their top 2 pitching prospects, who are 2 of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. So I think when they bring them up at some point this year or next year, I think putting them under the wing of deGrom is going to do amazing things for them. Clearly, how could it not, learning behind the best pitcher in all of baseball? So I think that also had a part to play in why they maybe overpaid a bit, knowing that those 2 guys have so much star potential that if you put them under the wing of deGrom, it's just going to do wonders. So although they overpaid because of the state of the situation the Rangers are in, where they're desperate for pitching and they already invested so much money on the offensive end, they kind of needed to use it on the pitching too. And having those 2 young guys coming up, I think it was worth the risk for them.
Okay. All right. That'll do it for the pitching segment. We move on over to the hitters that have signed in free agency. Dame, let me start off with you. Cody Bellinger to the Chicago Cubs for 1 year, $17.5 million. What do we think?
I think it's a great deal for the Cubs. Like we mentioned, they're kind of in the middle of not rebuilding, but not fully being ready to win now. And I think Cody Bellinger perfectly fits that bill as a signing. Clearly, there's a guy who won an NL MVP before, but the past 2 years, who knows what's happened with him? He's completely looked lost and nothing at all like the NL MVP he was before. I personally thought if the Yankees didn't sign Judge, he was a lock to go there, but he kind of signed before Judge, so that kind of worried me a little bit that they wouldn't have a backup plan. But I love Cody Bellinger. He has so much potential. He's still so young. And signing him to a 1-year deal, like, it doesn't hurt you. And if he does
risk,
great,
reward.
It's a low risk, high reward kind of thing. You know what he can possibly do, but if he doesn't, you just 1 year, $17 million, like, you'll be fine. And the fact that if he does do great in your situation, he'll be more inclined to re-sign with you than any other team. Because clearly for him, he only signs a 1-year deal because he wants to reset his market and get a bigger, more lucrative deal after he plays well. So if he plays well for you, from the Cubs' perspective, if he plays well for you, he's going to be more comfortable re-signing with you. He's going to maybe give you the chance to match the offer. Maybe he'll give you some kind of discount for you taking the risk on him. So I personally see as an amazing deal for the Cubs, and for Bellinger, for going to a team like this, like the Cubs, where it's not too much pressure. It's not like he goes to the Yankees or the Mets, where If he has a bad week or two, people are going to absolutely shit on him, and then it's going to ruin his market for the upcoming offseason. He goes to the Cubs where not much is going to be expected. He's going to go out there and be himself. He struggles a bit. He's going to have the time to recover and kind of get it back and go on a hot streak like we know he can. So I love it for both sides.
I think we got to have a conversation here. Is there a little bit of a curse with the NL MVP award here? No, not really, but I mean, it's worth noting both Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger have both absolutely just tanked ever since they won NL MVP awards. And Bellinger somehow outdid Christian Yelich, which I think is just kind of both funny and sad. Yeah, it seemed very clear that the Dodgers were done with Bellinger. The last 2 seasons, he just could not hit a lick for his life. It was absolutely terrible whenever he stepped up to the plate. Like he had, I stress moments, like individual moments here and there, but that was about it. It's not been a good 2 years for the former NL Rookie of the Year, home run setter, NL MVP for them, and World Series champion, and another piece of the World Series team gone. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, it's part of the Dodgers. If they're going to go into luxury, they want to go into luxury of paying guys that are definitively going to perform. And Cody Bellinger has not proved that the last couple seasons. Like Dame said, this could basically become a win-win. This is a low-pressure situation for Bellinger to go perform. It's a 1-year deal, still got pretty good money. That is the positive of being a former MVP in this league. Him having that MVP on his resume and being a World Series champion, I promise you, is going to earn him a career for at least 5 more seasons, worst-case scenario, where he's still going to make some pretty good money here and there in 1-year deals. But obviously, this is a year where he's going to rehabilitate himself, rehabilitate his game. Maybe he'll find something in Chicago. And at the end of the day, again, similar situation. You sign this kid to a 1-year deal. If he performs great this season, if he's just raking it by the All-Star break, you could trade him and get something back in return. Or if you want to keep him, like Dame said, if Bellinger realizes, hey, this is the team that took a chance on me, he'll sign for a pretty good deal next year. It won't be anything crazy like he maybe would have gotten right after 2019, but it'll still be a pretty penny, to say the very least, for him in his career. So this can only become a win-win. And again, no pressure. He'll get all the time. He'll get all the at-bats. He'll get all the chances in the field to improve. He's going to get every opportunity in Chicago. They're a retooling team that, like I mentioned before, they're trying not to rush whatever prospects they have, and they're trying to be smart in their drafts here the next couple of years. Bellinger is the perfect temporary stopgap fix as this organization figures out, in 2 years' time, are they going to continue on this path of rebuilding, or are they going to be able to take that next step as a team? He's a good piece there in the meanwhile to eat up at-bats. So win-win deal all around. I hope the best for him. I have no ill will against Cody Bellinger. I was a big fan of him when he was at his peak. So I hope that I went to a Mets game once and he hit a grand slam, and I called it when he did. So I really, really hope that all the best for him in his career.
Just more unnecessary comments from Jurg.
Super necessary.
All right. Stay faded, Cody Bellinger. Stay faded. All right, Jurg, let me stick with you. Jose Abreu, 3 years, $58.5 million with the Houston Astros. I believe you called this?
Yes.
Okay, so gloat away, my son.
Jurgstradamus strikes again, boys.
Speaking of Jurg, this podcast has been calling a lot of accurate things lately.
Yeah.
Across all sports, but go ahead.
Yes, some might say we actually know what we're talking about on this podcast. Who knows? Like I'm sure we've said before on the show, ladies and gentlemen, don't let the somewhat and somewhat sports fool you. This is an all sports podcast. We put the somewhat there because, well, it sounds catchy as all hell.
Yeah, good merch.
Exactly. Somewhat.sports on Instagram, by the way, for more amazing stuff like this. Anyways, Jose Abreu to the Astros. It just made sense, right? This is a guy who's going to leave the Chicago Cubs, is a little bit up there in age, but has proven recently he could still hit at a pretty good pace. It was the AL MVP in the 2020 shortened season. Again, he still has an AL MVP award on his resume. The Astros needed it. At first base, it felt like this Astros team is so deep, and especially now with Pena replacing Correa and Altuve's there. You still have Bregman. You have Yordan Alvarez. What Abreu does for them is that he gives them flexibility in the lineup on when they can put him in. Is he DH? Is he just going to play first base? There is flexibility, and that's what this Astros team is about. It's flexibility in that hitting core that they could put a different guy at first. They could have a guy in the DH depending on the lineups here. The guy can hit for power. He's a veteran. I'm sure he's very eager to go to a team that we've kind of mentioned. The AL has run through the Astros for the last 6 seasons. If they don't make it to the World Series, the team that beats them wins the World Series. Literally, This is the premier team in all of Major League Baseball for the last 6 years, and he wants to try to win a championship before his career's done. Now, he gets a little bit of money while doing so, which is great, but he's just going to an amazing environment. Like, you want to talk about no pressure. He's surrounded by AL MVP caliber candidates. Yordan Alvarez is AL MVP caliber candidate. Alex Bregman is an AL MVP caliber candidate when he's at his best. Altuve has won the AL MVP award. He himself has won the AL MVP award. You have 4 MVP caliber players in one lineup, like at some point or another in their career. And they're still, like, this is just an amazing signing by the Astros. It made perfect sense. The fit was right there, and they did it. And at a pretty good price, too. I think, like, again, guys at Abreu's age, staying as healthy as they are, performing the way they are, they're going to get like one more payday at least. This is a pretty good payday for himself. 3 years, just under $60 million. Houston definitely more than willing, especially with Verlander leaving. Like the flexibility, like it sucks that Verlander's gone, but if they believe in their pitching depth that much, then you are going to reinvest that money somewhere else. And it's clear that they believed in the hitting core to get another bat for them to help support that pitching core even more. Just a great signing by the Astros. This is the type of move that a champion does, and this is why they've run this league for the last 6 years.
Yeah, fuck the Astros, but I mean, I can't do anything but give them props for what they did. A lineup that already has Alvarez, Bregman, Altuve. I forgot their right fielder, Kyle Tucker. Like, this lineup is just loaded, and all they do is just try to add and get better compared to other teams in the AL that make the most money in the league. Yeah, are the cheapest in the league and just don't care about getting better, even though they're just a bunch of losers. So just good for the Astros. I mean, this is exactly how organization is supposed to be run. Take the cheating scandal out of it. This is exactly what they should be doing. Every team should be doing. You make it to World Series, or you're just successful or not successful. You're just always supposed to try to get better. Try to do it for your fans. Fans pay you money with merchandising and ticket sales, and give you this revenue and money for you to spend it to put a better product in the field. And this team went out, won the World Series, and added a former AL MVP for $20 million a year. Nothing but props to them. I hate them for being this good and being this well run, but I still can't stand them. But good for them.
Okay. I could have. What a great analysis. I felt the anger. So first time listeners, you'll know what we're talking about. All right. Dame, I'm stick with you. Anthony Gallo Rizzo. No, I'm just saying. I'm just joking. Yeah, Anthony Rizzo, 2 years, $34 million with your Yankees. How do we feel?
It's literally they just stayed the same. They had to sign Rizzo. They if they didn't, they would get worse from what they already were, and they were awful last year. But Rizzo, I think, based off how good he is in the clubhouse, I think that's a great reason to bring him back. His hitting obviously wasn't as good. He hit like 220, but I feel like every moment that he needed to get a hit or get a guy in, he did it. So I really like Rizzo. Really like bringing him back. He's an outstanding defensive first baseman as well. And with the shit fielders that the Yankees have in the infield, especially on the left side with Donaldson and IKF, you need an elite first baseman that could save their god-awful throws sometimes, because then that's going to just put you in an awful situation. So I think that was a big part of it too, why they wanted to retain him at all costs. Of course, you saw a last-second report the day before Rizzo signed that the Astros were in on him. So, of course, the Yankees shit their pants, and they went out and signed him the very next day. But, 2 for 34. The shift's also banned this year, which I think is going to do great things for him, because I think he got a lot of hits taken away from the shift. So now the fact that it's taken away, they banned it, he's going to get a lot more hits, a lot more extra base hits. He's going to get guys in more often, and his batting average is going to go up. So I really like this deal for $17 million a year with a 30-year option. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, with the Yankees, hitting wise, there's enough talent there where a guy like Rizzo, who they ended up trading for, they kept. I think a lot of people may have expected him. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dame. I think maybe the expectation was he would have left last offseason when they had the chance, but they kept him for the 1 year deal and now signed him for a little bit here. It just makes sense. Like, even with his struggles, he's still a pretty good player. He's still a pretty notable player. I think he's still valuable enough, like Dame mentioned, with like the defensive struggles that the Yankees still have, even despite the fact they've gotten rid of bad defensive players in the past, but I guess they still bring in another one. They need a guy like him with his consistency. And sometimes in baseball, like, this is just a fact. Sometimes you will pay for consistency. I think what Anthony Rizzo gives you is just a overall consistent player to be in that lineup, to be a support piece. Like, he's a fine support player to a overall lineup that has as much talent as this team can have on any given night. I think the thing is that when you attach higher expectations, I think maybe that's the thing. I think we've come down on the expectation of Rizzo because remember when the Cubs were like tearing down the core, it's like, oh, like Rizzo's going here and Baez is going here, like all that stuff, and like, oh, what impact are these guys going to make? They're good players, but like even though Chris Bryant won an NL MVP award, that's why I kind of joke about the NL MVP curse recently, where it's like some of these guys just like they don't do much after winning the MVP. So Rizzo's a fine player, he's a consistent player. The Yankees kind of needed to just keep a consistent guy there. Like the saying is, it's better to trust the devil you know than the devil you don't. And I think Yankees fans like Dame will take Rizzo's somewhat inconsistent stretches but in return they'll get 25 homers and guaranteed good defense on that side of the infield.
I don't know Damon was a Yankees fan. That's crazy. That's wild to me. Jurg, let me stick with you. Wilson Contreras, 5 years, $87.5 million.
To
St. Louis Cardinals, baby.
Huh. Weird. It's almost like someone on the show also said that. Interesting. Once again, it just made sense. I rarely get to say this because sometimes it just doesn't happen, but make it make sense. Your Hall of Fame, best catcher in franchise history, I'm willing to bet, retires. Yadier Molina, gone. Who do you replace him with? You replace him with a guy that's got a couple 20 home run seasons under his belt. You replace him with a guy that's pretty good behind the plate. Not at that same level. Not like there's just instinct and talent that you cannot replicate, but this is a pretty good guy to be there for them. They had decent options within the organization. No real prospect from what like I remember reading in the offseason, just like decent replacement options. But and this is the thing, and this is what I like. I like a team that's trying to take a chance here. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado were both finalists for the NL MVP award last season. We'll see if they can continue that next season. They have a decent enough pitching core. To me, I like the Cardinals kind of flipping the script here. They paid for Goldschmidt. They paid a little bit to get Arenado. Now they're paying for Contreras. This is a Cardinals team. When do the Cardinals pay out this kind of money? Like, I like this new version of the Cardinals. I don't know where this ownership is finally like getting the idea to spend their money, but gladly. If it keeps the organization good, gives them a good stopgap for the Yadier Molina replacement, which I think Contreras, I don't want to put the expectation on him, but he's still a pretty good guy overall. Like, again, 20 plus home runs, very solid behind the plate. It was just a fit that made sense, and the Cardinals did the move that made sense. Congratulations, St. Louis. There's like this only can make them a little bit better. Like, even though losing Yadi, you'll technically get worse. It's not that steep of a fall off compared to what it would have been. Great signing by the Cardinals.
Yeah, props to Jurg for predicting this one. I think it's a perfect fit. I don't know how I didn't think. I think I had him to the Astros though, which just made. But I mean, it's a perfect fit. You losing Yadier Molina, and what better way to replace him with arguably the best hitting catcher in the entire league? He's a great defensive catcher too. This team isn't going to lose a beat. They might even get better because obviously Yadier Molina, the Hall of Famer player he is, he just wasn't the same player he was in his prime. Clearly last year, Wilson Contreras was much better. So adding a guy like Wilson Contreras fits right in. He's going to be great for the pitching staff, great for the lineup with Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado there, and all these other young guys they have coming up too. So adding him there is great. 5 for 87, I think, is a steal at the catcher position. There's so little great catches in this league that being able to add a guy like Wilson Contreras is a necessity at some point. I think this team just is one of those teams that never really goes through a full rebuild. They're always just getting better each and every offseason to stay relevant. And I think adding Wilson Contreras is great, and this team will be great. And I'm just happy he actually didn't go to the Astros because, of course, they would just get even better. But good thing he's out there in the NL instead of the AL.
All right. Last two. Dame, I'm stick with you. Trey Turner, 11 years, $300 million, Philadelphia Phillies. Talk to me.
So I think I actually predict this one. I think this is a great signing for Philadelphia, a great signing to Trey Turner. Clearly he wanted to be there because he did have a bigger offer on the table from the Padres. The Padres had an offer that would make him the highest paid shortstop of all time, passing Francisco Lindor. But he decided to pass on that offer to go to Philadelphia Phillies to play with one of his closest friends in Bryce Harper. And this is also, like I was talking about the Astros, this is a great way to run an organization. The team just went to World Series, just had such a successful season, just made a great run. And what they do with all that revenue that they made from the playoffs and the entire season and all the merchandise sale, they put it back into the team and into the product they put on the field to try to take the next step and put them over the hump and make them even better by adding, in my opinion, the best shortstop in the entire league. Trey Turner could do everything. He could play defense. He could play shortstop, second base, and even center field. He's probably the fastest guy in the entire league. He hits over 300 each and every single year. He even hits for power. You don't see many guys that are as fast as him and are so speedy and such contact hitters that hit for power, but he still does it. I would have loved for him to go to Yankees. I think he would have been perfect fit because they missed that kind of speed element in their lineup. But for the Phillies, man, you already saw how dangerous this lineup could be in the playoffs with Kyle Schwarber, Castellanos, Bohm, Harper. I already mentioned Schwarber, JT Realmuto, all these guys, and you just put Trey Turner at the top of that lineup. Do you know how many RBIs Bryce Harper is going to have this season? It's going to be ridiculous. Oh, he's missing the first month or two, I think, but after that, he's going to explode. The rest of his offense, I think, is going to have extremely great RBI opportunities where Trey Turner is even going to get singles or walk, and he's going to steal second and third base on 2 or 3 pitches. I think this is amazing for the Phillies. I think they're gearing up to get a shortstop, honestly, because if you had to think of one weakness in their lineup, it is that shortstop position. And they didn't just go out and get a stopgap guy like IKF. They went out and got the best free agent shortstop in the entire league, in Trey Turner, who adds so many different elements to your offense and defense. I absolutely love the signing. And the fact that they got him for, I think, $27 million a year is another steal. Of course, they had to add the 11 years, but, I mean, if you're getting the guy for $27 million a year, the time to win is now. You shouldn't have to worry about the future. The time to win is now for that team. Clearly, they just went to the World Series. So adding a guy like Trey Turner, and we already talked about Ty and Walker, this is a team. I love what they're doing. They just won the World Series, and they're doing everything they can to get back there and take that next step and win it.
Yeah, like this is what David Dombrowski does. He sees a team that made a run, and he's trying to add to it. We mentioned it earlier with Taijuan Walker with the pitching, and now Trey Turner with the hitting. Like this has honestly been rumored even going back to last season that Trey Turner wanted to go to the Phillies. He ended up staying with Dodgers with the Dodgers for just a 1-year deal, and this is why you kind of saw the market like in and of itself kind of dried up with shortstops. I think he probably still could have gotten this deal last year, but maybe just wanted that guaranteed 1 year in LA. Try to win another championship, try to win a championship potentially before going out. And now you have the situation here. He goes back to play with Bryce Harper. The two know each other from their time with the Washington Nationals. He will get all the opportunity in the world to play on this team. Like they mentioned, he's a consistent home run hitter, but it's just his hitting overall. He hits for average. He'll hit for good contact. The dimensions he adds to you offensively and defensively, the presence in the locker room he is, I'm sure no one in LA could say a bad thing about him. I'm sure no one in Washington can say a bad thing about him. At the end of the day, this is what championship caliber teams do. This is what a team that just went on a run does. They make the moves in order to sustain this level and get back to this level. Because, I mean, we kind of said it in our World Series analysis, Chris. You never know when you're going to get back there, but you might as well just give it your best shot to get back there. And this was an amazing job overall by the Phillies to do this. You get a guy who's going to be great in the locker room, great on offense, great on defense. Like 11 years is a lot, but this has been the status quo for a while with baseball. They're really paying for only like, I'll say 5 years of really great production, maybe an extra year or two of good, and then the last 4 years of that contract. It's more just like the tax. I think it's an unspoken tax in baseball. You got to tack on the extra years to get that total contract value to what these guys want. This is just how it works. So great move here overall by the Phillies. Strong move. Team that made the playoffs only gets stronger, and that's what they need, especially with like the pitching and what that division can be with the Braves pitching, with the Mets now having still they lost the ground with Verlander and Mad Max. Like they need the hitters to combat that. They need as many as they can. Is a perfect thing right here to do so.
Main event time, and the timing of this is great because Dame goes last. All right, Jurg, sticking with you. Aaron Judge has re-signed with the New York Yankees. 9 years, $360 million. Yeah, talk to me. What do we think?
All the smackaroos.
Oh, by the way, can we cut ass on that reporter who like completely botched the report that he was going to the Giants? I forgot his name. Was his name Heyman or something?
John Heyman, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys could slander him if you want, especially Dame. But Jared, go ahead.
I don't know if he botched it. I think he's just old. I think he just completely made the mistake. I think he just like got it wrong.
So he botched it. Fuck him.
I think he was paid off by Judge's agents, but we'll get to that.
Okay. All right, Jared, talk.
We just had 3 hits in a row in terms of like us predicting that, and now we're going to throw all our credibility away. Nice job. But here we are. I've said this the whole time. If the Yankees do not pay Aaron Judge, if they do not pay that man his money, that I was going to call for collusion because it would have been absolute horse manure that he wouldn't have gotten paid properly. And they paid him. Not as much as I thought they would, which honestly, hindsight 2020 kind of makes sense with the age, and injuries a little bit. But he got paid. And this is the least shocking thing in the world. He just had literally the greatest individual home run season an AL player has ever had. Notice how I specify AL. This is the best season that a player has had in the modern game in quite a while. Aaron Judge has been electric for the Yankees for a good bit. It feels like sometimes that without him, that offense just does not click. And that kind of literally was the case for a lot of stretches this season. This is the franchise player. This is the face of the team. I guess he's going to become the next captain. That, like, nothing against Aaron Judge. I'm just not sure. Like, if it's taking you this long to name a new bona fide captain, I just wouldn't name one to this core if you didn't have the confidence, like, beforehand. But I guess they're going to name him captain as well, which is a very a massive honor for the Yankees. Like, I don't know how many MLB teams technically like give a real like captain. I feel like the Yankees are one of the few, if not only. I think it made sense. I think had they lost him, I think everyone would have lost faith in this power structure in the organization. Baby Steinbrenner would have definitely caught ire from the fans, but Cashman as well, even down to Boone, even though the free agent choices aren't his call, like the pressure would have been on immensely for the organization in one essence of how could you let the face of the franchise walk? What is wrong with you? This is not the Yankees of old. And it would have been like people would have called for jobs had Aaron Judge ended up leaving this team. So they had to do this to save face. They had to do this to save their jobs. They have to do this. Like, this still helps the team. I don't want to make it sound like it doesn't help the team. He was owed this. And I'm not saying because the Yankees screwed him over. It's because the way baseball has its structure in terms of when guys can hit unrestricted free agency is absolute bull. I've had issues with it for a while. We do not have enough time on this podcast to really break it down and try to come up with a solution. But baseball, this is one of the many broken things about the system. Some guys will not hit complete unrestricted free agency until they turn 29, 30, 31. And yet we have doubts about paying them the money because they're a little bit older. But the only reason they're older hitting this is because of your corrupt system and how you have it. Like, okay, Major League Baseball, way to be hypocritical, but be that as it may, the Yankees had to do this, kind of like we mentioned this before with another team. They had to do this. They had to make this move. They didn't have much of a choice here. They had to retain the face of the franchise. I'm happy for Aaron Judge because, once again, the baseball payout structure kind of screwed him. This is his first big money deal. Like, again, I don't think people realize not every Major League player will hit even their second real or their first real contract. It just doesn't always happen. So I'm happy for him. He deserves it. The season he had, like, just setting the standard of what other guys got paid and the seasons they had versus the season he had, he got paid a good amount annually. And I think that was a big deal for the Yankees where, like, they upped their offer in the final moments. They understood, like, years-wise, it wasn't going to work out. So, like, he was never going to get 10, 12, like, years from the Yankees. But if that average number was really high up there, it was going to work out. And that's exactly what they did. This could potentially set a new standard for the future in terms of superstar players getting just higher annual averages, but the deal's not being like 50 freaking years and they have to like back pay guys and pay guys after they've retired and stuff. But at the end of this, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Can Aaron Judge's body hold up for 162 games more consistently? Because this was the healthiest he's been since his rookie year or year 2 at best. So there were some injury issues going into the season. It looked like he was at his healthiest and his best ever, which was at the literal perfect time. I'm happy for him, happy for the organization. But there are questions, and I think the questions are valid of can he hold up? Can he do this more? He's not going to hit 60 home runs every year, obviously. He's not going to hit 50 home runs every year. Can he be that 35, 40, 45 home run guy more? Can he prove to be the captain? Can he show he has more intangibles? Can he show up more consistently when they make the playoffs? Straight up, the expectation, as fair as it is or not, because he doesn't build the rest of the team, the expectation is the Yankees need to win a World Series now in the next 9 years, or this contract is going to end up being a failure. Is that completely fair to Aaron Judge? No, because he's not the only player on this team, and no, because he's not the one constructing this team. But that's the pressure that's going to be put on him. And it would be nice. It'd be the perfect, bow around the present, icing on the cake, if he can be the lead Yankee to lead this team back to the World Series and lead this generation of Yankees to a championship. And That is the expectation. That is going to be the baseline. It has now been set. The Yankees, you have a timeline, you have a standard, you got to go after it. It's all or nothing now for the Yankees, for this organization going forward. Like that's the end of the deal. It's all or nothing from this point forward. World Series or bust every single year.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of Aaron Judge. Not my favorite player, but absolutely like one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching him play. Love watching what he does for this team, and the kind of season he had. But I was disappointed when I saw the news that he re-signed, especially the contract he got. Of course, I wanted him back no matter what. I wanted him back. I don't know why I said no matter what, but I did want him back. But I just knew it wasn't realistic because no matter what, he was going to get a massive contract that I believe is way too much for him. And he got way more than I even expected. I mean, 9 years for 360 is absolutely ridiculous. $40 million a year for a guy who's 31. So he's going to be paid $40 million a year till through the age of 40, which is crazy to think for a guy who only has had 1 or 2 healthy seasons out of his 6 with the Yankees. He's always hurt. Of course, the 1 year where you have to pay him, he plays a full season. It just that's just how it goes with these guys. I love the guy. I mean, I think he's going to be great for the first 2 years of the contract, but after that, I mean, it's going to set them back for 7 to 8 years, 6 to 7 years of the contract. I think they're going to be kind of capped. We know how cheap Hal Steinbrenner is. Baby Steinbrenner is a perfect way to put it. I mean, the guy's nothing like his dad. Here's the thing. If the Yankees go out and they get Carlos Rendon and, say, Andrew Benintendi and get guys on top of this Aaron Judge contract, I completely get it, and I'll completely justify re-signing Judge because you needed to do it. And then you went out and you got guys on top of that to make the team better. But this team is the exact same team you brought in last year, if not worse. You lost Jameson Taillon. You lost a couple of key bullpen pieces. You lost Andrew Benintendi. I forgot, there's another hitter they lost or almost lost. I think they're trying to trade Gleyber Torres to another guy. This team did not get better by his contract. If anything, they got worse for the next 9 years because they're using so much money on a guy who plays one position, who's always hurt, and just he's not a guy that you can count on consistently. I get it, the amazing season he did have. I get it. But throughout his career, I've watched him every single year. I've watched this team every single year. This team has so many holes from left field to third base to shortstop to bullpen to adding another starter. This team has so many holes, and you're putting $360 million in a guy who plays one position, who can't play there every single day. So it's tough for me to say I'm happy about the deal. It doesn't make sense. This team's going to be capped for a while, knowing the ownership they do have. Everything can change if they go out and they spend more money on top of this. I just have seen it for the past few seasons. That is just not something they do. They've been cheap each and every single offseason. They just don't try to get better, unlike other teams like the Astros, which I mentioned before, that they went to World Series and they're still spending money to make their team better. Unlike the Yankees, who have been a disappointment for the past 25 years. Honestly, since George Steinbrenner died and passed, rest in peace, passed away, this team has been an embarrassment the way they're run. Brian Cashman should have never been extended. He's been absolutely awful at his job. The IKF Josh Donaldson trade might be the worst trade in sports history, not just baseball. You traded for Josh Donaldson, taking on his you know how teams kind of give assets away if you take on a bad contract. That happens to all sports. You see in basketball all the time, attaching draft picks to bad contracts. The Yankees took on Josh Donaldson's 2-year, $50 million deal just so they can get IKF. Think about that. Their asset that they got for taking on a $50 million deal for a guy who's 38 and hits 200 and strikes out 300 times a year and plays awful defense, their reward for taking on that contract was IKF. So just based off that trade, you should have never even thought about bringing Brian Cashman back. Awful trade. But on top of that, he just hasn't run this team great. I don't even think the Aaron Judge signing was because of him. Clearly, reports came out that Hal Steinbrenner got on the phone with Aaron Judge directly and asked him what it needs to be done to get it done, and that's how it got done. You guys mentioned the John Heyman thing where he came out and said that it appears that Aaron Judge is going to the Giants. I think that was completely from Aaron Judge's camp. I think they told him that information, made him put it out, and then the Yankees panicked. You saw interviews of Aaron Boone where he was like, this last hour has been terrifying or something like that. He's been super nervous about it. And he doesn't know what's going on. I think that put and then I think Hal Steinbrenner saw the media outburst of that and the fans outburst, and that's when he got on the phone to Aaron Judge and he got pressured into adding another year for $40 million. I saw before they were at like 8 for 300, which is still a lot, but would be absolutely a lot better than 9 years for 360. I think the Yankees got absolutely played by Aaron Judge in this camp. He was never going to the Giants. He knew that that's a loser organization, that even if he went there, they wouldn't be as successful or nearly as successful with branding him as the Yankees would be. Playing in New York, Aaron Judge knows how much spotlight that brings him, how much money that makes him off the field. California taxes are even worse than New York taxes, so he would have lost even more money there. He was never going to leave the Yankees unless the Yankees just straight up said that they aren't going to pay him anywhere near it. So the Yankees got completely played here. Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner look like jokes being played by the media and Aaron Judge's agents. But yeah, look, I'm a fan of Aaron Judge. If they go on top of this and spend more, considerably more money to fill all these gaping holes that they have, I'll be more okay with it. But I think this contract sends the Yankees back so many years because they're going to be paying $40 million a year to a guy who's just not going to stay healthy and hasn't shown that he's been consistent throughout his entire career. And this is a team known for not spending, so why would they spend even more when they know when they do spend, they just don't know how to spend it?
Dame, this is my thing with the deal. Will this not, maybe this is your mindset. If this isn't the contract to force them to pay more, to fix the team, then nothing is going to convince the power structure to pay more. You would have thought when they traded for Stanton in his big contract and you knew he was going to end up staying in Optimus because no one was going to pay him, you thought, okay, because we have Stanton, we got to try to figure this out. Then they pay Garrett Cole. It's like, all right, Garrett Cole, big-time pitcher. We got to fix the rotation, hitting, boom, contracts coming up. Now it's Judge. Are you going to lose faith if this is the contract that doesn't convince this power structure to pay more? Because at this point, you do have to pay to build a winning team. And if they're willing to pay out to these specific players, but not for more, does that just dishearten? Is that just going to dishearten you and just make you lose faith in this team for whatever they could do come the playoffs?
Look, I think that Hal Steinbrenner went out and called Aaron Judge and paid him whatever it is because he's so scared of ruining his brand and ruining his image. When they had a Derek Jeter celebration or ceremony at Yankee Stadium where he mentioned Hal Steinbrenner, he got booed. I think they had a ring ceremony or something like that, or some kind of ceremony for Old Timers Day, and they introduced Hal Steinbrenner. He got booed in front of 50,000 fans, and I'm sure as an owner of that team, that doesn't make you feel well. And media reporters have came out and said that bothers Hal Steinbrenner, that his image is what it is. So he's always trying to protect the brand no matter what. That's why I feel like the Yankees are quote-unquote in on every free agent, quote-unquote in on every trade target, because they got to show that they're trying. But deep down, I know, so many other people know, Hal Steinbrenner knows he doesn't want to spend that money. He doesn't want to take that next step because he's just a cheap fuck. It is what it is. I've seen it over and over. And I just think this was a deal where if he just let Aaron Judge go for no matter what it is, he would have paid him $50 million a year, I think, if that meant that he got to keep and protect his brand, because he knows that there's so many Yankee fans that would have paid him what it is. And if Aaron Judge left, they would have absolutely destroyed him, trashed him, even burned down Yankee Stadium, and he couldn't have that. So I think him overpaying for Aaron Judge is more of a saving face, saving brand kind of move for him, instead of really thinking logically and thinking what's the best deal for me to put out the best, to give me the best chance to win a World Series.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end this episode than Dame's, I guess, speech, for lack of a better term. But yeah, all right, I think that's it. Really good job this week, fellas. That ending, Dame really, lived up to the hype of talking about Aaron Judge. But yeah, look, there will be more moves on the way. Free agency is not done, but these are the moves that occurred by the time we got to recording. So I'm pretty sure there will be more moves next week by the time we're recording, and we'll talk about those moves as well. Very enjoyable hearing you guys talk about all these moves so far. Good analysis, as always. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
More to come from this, baby, and more to come of our coverage, aka our predictions, on the World Cup. If you are a big soccer person, you want to think of anything with the show when it comes to soccer analysis, you got to go to SomewhatSports, where we put for our first ever football-related post in podcast history, we put our round of 16 predictions. I think we all did pretty well for the most part. I think, did all of us go 6-2? I think we all got 2 games wrong, at least, for the most part.
I predicted USA, even though I knew Netherlands was going to win just for the fuck of it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I knew I was going to go into it.
Yeah, we all make our predictions.
I think we all had the same record, yeah.
Yeah, so we all try to put on our soccer caps on the best we can. Not the most effective because this isn't our strongest sport, but we gave it our best try. If you want to see more predictions, more soccer content, more daily polls, which we're doing for the World Cup, it's got to be somewhat.sports, where you will also get updates when the podcast comes out on Spotify and YouTube, Somewhat Space Then Sports. You'll get our NFL weekly predictions. You will get our eventual summary/update of Crowns and Clowns so far this season, and you'll get plenty of more as off seasons continue, as off seasons go along. And like I mentioned just now, Somewhat Space and Sports on YouTube and Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube. Give us 5 stars on Spotify. Leave comments, leave reviews, and let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what you don't love about the show. We are a podcast for the people, by 3 people, here to give you guys the best breakdown, news analysis possible. Hey, you just heard that this podcast got a couple hits in free agency and in MLB. We know what we're talking about, boys. And that's because this is the best sports podcast out there, bar none. Thank you all.
What a way to go out. Beautifully put, as always, Jurg. Yeah, you guys did a great job. To all of our listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.